In the heart of a moonless night, when the world is cloaked in darkness and silence falls like a heavy shroud, you awaken with a jolt, your heart pounding as if desperate to escape its confines. A cold sweat glistens on your skin as you realize that the stillness surrounding you conceals secrets far older and more sinister than any nightmare. Every shadow in your room twists into grotesque shapes, and a barely audible murmur on the stale air insists that you are not alone. The darkness, no longer a mere absence of light, now pulsates with a life of its own. It beckons and taunts, its presence almost tangible, as if the very air were imbued with spectral energy defying explanation. You strain your eyes in the gloom, and in that shifting twilight, familiar surroundings morph into a labyrinth of dread and despair. What once was comforting now hides insidious threats that slither at the edges of your vision. A sudden, bone-chilling cold cuts through the stifling heat of panic, as if unseen fingers have brushed your skin with an icy caress. The oppressive silence shatters when a disembodied voice, soft and sorrowful, echoes from nowhere. "Do not be afraid." Those haunting words resonate deep within, stirring memories of loss and unspoken regret. Yet no solace comes from them. Instead, they herald the arrival of an ancient malevolence. As your senses heighten, every creak of the floorboards and every subtle shift of the shadows becomes a portent of doom. The walls, once silent sentinels, now seem to breathe, a damp, cold exhalation carrying the scent of decay and forgotten tragedies. In a warped mirror on the wall, your reflection flickers and distorts, intermingling with phantom visages of tortured souls pleading for release from eternal torment. You desperately search for logic amid the onslaught of terror, but reason dissolves as evidence of something otherworldly mounts. The room transforms into a stage where reality and nightmare blur into one horrifying continuum. Soft whispers swell into a dissonant chorus of voices, each one a thread woven into the tapestry of terror unfolding around you. In a moment of paralyzing dread, you sense a figure drifting at the periphery, a presence so subtle it seems to merge with the darkness. This spectral shape, shifting like smoke, exudes an aura of despair and primordial malice. Its eyes, catching the faintest glimmer of light, burn with an intensity that freezes you in place, promising unspeakable horrors with every silent glance. The atmosphere grows unbearably dense as the night deepens. Each second stretches into an eternity, and the fabric of time warps under the weight of fear. You feel as though you stand on the brink of an abyss, peering into a void from which there is no return. The boundaries of your reality crumble, revealing a chaotic realm of darkness lurking just beyond the known. In this charged moment, you recognize that the terror you face is no fleeting nightmare. It is merely the opening act of a series of horrors that defy comprehension. The air vibrates with a sinister promise, and the very room seems to pulse in anticipation of the horrors to come. Every nerve screams for escape, yet an invisible force pins you in place, compelling you to confront the encroaching darkness head-on. As if summoned by your rising dread, disjointed visions invade your mind, fleeting images of ancient rituals, spectral figures dancing in the corners of memory, and echoes of forgotten sorrows. These visions transport you to a time when the barrier between the mortal world and the supernatural was perilously thin. Each phantom scene fades into the next, leaving behind an indelible trail of terror that clings to your soul. A low, relentless tapping soon emerges, emanating from the very walls, a steady percussion that mirrors your racing heartbeat. This eerie beat blends with the mournful sighs of a wind that carries the strains of a lost lament, creating a macabre symphony orchestrated by unseen forces. Every sound, every silence now speaks the language of fear, a language that burrows deep into your core. Outside, the familiar world transforms into an endless expanse of ominous darkness. Every rustle, every distant movement, hints at lurking malevolence beyond the fragile barrier of your window. The comforting normalcy of life is erased, replaced by an overwhelming sense of impending doom that seeps into your every thought. In these final, heart-stopping moments before the full assault of the supernatural, you understand that nothing will ever be the same. The night, with all its secrets and silent terrors, has begun its relentless claim over you, drawing you into a vortex of fear and despair from which there is no escape. In the bleak twilight of a forsaken evening, a group of resolute adventurers sought to challenge the boundaries of fear by venturing into a place shunned by time and life, an abandoned hospital. Once a beacon of hope and healing, its now crumbling walls stood as silent testaments to unspeakable tragedies and sorrowful memories. The building's facade, marred by decay and the ravages of neglect, exuded an aura of ominous despair that sent shivers down the spine of anyone who dared to approach. Diego, a man whose curiosity was rivaled only by his courage, led his closest friends to the derelict structure as dusk gave way to a starless night. The heavy, rusted gates groaned in protest as they pushed them open, as though the hospital itself lamented the intrusion of the living into its domain of eternal suffering. Each step along the overgrown path toward the entrance was fraught with palpable tension, the air thick with an unspoken promise of horror waiting beyond shattered glass and crumbling bricks. Inside, the hospital revealed itself as a labyrinth of decay and despair. Faded murals, once vibrant with hope, now peeled from the walls like remnants of a lost past. The corridors, long abandoned to silence, resonated with the eerie drip of water and the intermittent creaks of a structure in mourning. The narrow beams of their flashlights cut through the oppressive darkness, unveiling forgotten rooms where time had stilled, leaving behind relics of a bygone era. Rusted medical tools, warped beds, and scattered vestiges of lives once filled with promise. As the group advanced deeper into the bowels of the building, a chilling draft swept through the halls, carrying with it the faint scent of antiseptic mingled with decay. Then came a sound, barely more than a whisper, that began to echo through the empty corridors, a mournful wail that seemed to emanate from the very soul of the hospital. The sound was both sorrowful and terrifying, a lament resonating with the pain of countless lost souls confined within these walls. Compelled by equal measures of dread and determination, Diego guided his friends to a narrow, dim room at the end of a long corridor. The door, scarred by time and violence, creaked open to reveal a chamber frozen in the aftermath of chaos. In its center lay a rusted iron bed, its frame twisted in agony. Beside it, the spectral figure of a nurse materialized, a gaunt apparition clad in a tattered uniform, her eyes vast voids reflecting unfathomable sorrow. For a fleeting moment, she turned her head. In that brief glance her gaze seared into the hearts of the onlookers, promising untold torment. A surge of terror gripped the group. A blood-curdling scream erupted from one of them, shattering the silence and igniting a chain reaction of panic. In an instant, the ghostly nurse dissolved into the darkness, leaving behind only a lingering chill and the echo of her silent despair. The room, once a repository of forgotten memories, transformed into a theater of horror, a place where the line between the living and the dead blurred into an endless nightmare. Desperate to escape the clutches of the malevolent force awakened within these walls, the group fled down twisting corridors. The hospital itself appeared to conspire against them. Hallways warped and shifted, disorienting their senses, while sinister shadows danced along the walls as if mocking their futile attempts at escape. Each turn revealed new terrors, a broken mirror distorting their reflections, a solitary porcelain doll cracked and abandoned in a dark puddle, and faded photographs hinting at lives marred by tragedy. Upon reaching the main atrium, a sudden gust of frigid wind swept through, carrying with it a chorus of mournful sobs. The sound was so raw and heart-wrenching that it clawed at the very core of their being, etching itself into their memories like a relentless curse. Diego, driven by equal parts terror and an unyielding need for truth, urged the group forward toward the source of the sorrowful cries. In a neglected room off the atrium, they discovered a large, shattered mirror precariously hanging on a wall. Its fractured surface revealed multiple images, each more horrifying than the last. Among the distorted reflections, the spectral nurse reappeared, her form looming behind the terrified faces of the group. Her eyes, dark and lifeless, conveyed a silent plea for retribution, while a single bloodied handprint was indelibly pressed onto the glass, as though to mark the living with an eternal curse. The realization struck them like a crushing blow. The hospital was not merely a building, but a sentient repository of anguish and torment, a malevolent force thriving on the fear and despair of those who trespassed its cursed halls. Every echoing footstep and whispered lament unfurled its dark history, revealing secrets of brutal experiments, unspeakable cruelty, and souls doomed to wander in eternal purgatory. Each corridor bore silent witness to the suffering that had transpired within its confines, a litany of horrors too vast to comprehend. Huddled together in the cold, dim light, they felt the oppressive atmosphere close in. The walls themselves appeared to bleed sorrow, their surfaces adorned with spectral images that flickered like tormented apparitions. Time stretched into an endless maze as each heartbeat echoed in unison with distant cries of the departed, a rhythmic symphony of despair that resonated through the very fabric of the hospital. In that unbearable moment, Diego and his friends knew they were marked, not only by the haunted legacy of the hospital but by the spectral nurse's lingering presence. The cursed handprint on the mirror was proof that the malevolent energy would not rest until it had claimed them as its own. With grim resolve, they vowed to escape the relentless grip of the hospital, determined that the horrors witnessed that night would serve as a dire warning to any who dared seek the unknown. Yet even as they raced toward the exit, the hospital resisted. Doors slammed shut on their own accord, corridors twisted in a disorienting dance, and the mournful sobs grew louder, mingling with the frantic pounding of their hearts. In a final, heart-stopping moment, a spectral figure, other than the nurse, materialized at the far end of a long hallway, its form obscured by shifting shadows. This new presence exuded pure malice, the very embodiment of the hospital's tortured past. The sight of this apparition plunged the group into frenzied panic. They stumbled in terror, each second a battle against an overwhelming dread that sought to paralyze every thought. In the ensuing chaos, Diego felt the icy grip of fate tighten around him, as if the hospital had chosen him to bear its unspeakable secrets. Every breath became a defiant cry against the encroaching darkness that threatened to consume them entirely. As the night deepened and the first hints of dawn emerged, the group burst through the hospital's front doors into the bitter, cold air of the outside world. Yet even as they collapsed onto the overgrown lawn, gasping for relief, the memory of the hospital's relentless horror clung to them like a shadow. The malevolent force dwelling within those decaying walls had left an indelible mark, a promise that the terror was far from over and that its chilling grasp would follow them long after they had escaped. In the lingering silence of early morning, as mists rose to swallow the remnants of that cursed night, an unshakable dread settled over them, a foretaste of the dark fate that awaited, echoing the eternal lament of those forsaken halls. Mariana was known for her quiet strength and gentle nature, living alone in a modest apartment nestled in the beating heart of a sprawling city. For years, the familiar rhythm of urban life, distant honks, murmurs of midnight conversations, and the soft rustle of leaves in the wind, had been her constant companion. Yet, on one fateful night, as twilight surrendered to the consuming darkness, an unsettling presence began to infiltrate her sanctuary, eroding the boundaries between reality and nightmare with an insidious persistence that left her trembling in its wake. At first, it was the small, inexplicable details that unsettled her. A cherished key mysteriously vanishing from its usual perch on the kitchen counter, only to reappear in an unexpected corner. A delicate glass, once resting securely in the sink, now inexplicably positioned on the dining table as if deliberately placed by unseen hands with a purpose both cruel and enigmatic. Mariana tried to dismiss these occurrences as coincidences, tricks of the light, or the whimsical workings of an overactive imagination. But with each passing night, the disturbances grew bolder, their frequency an insidious crescendo that gnawed away at her sense of security and sanity. One fateful evening, as the city's hum dimmed and the oppressive silence of her apartment deepened into a suffocating void, Mariana was jolted awake by the sound of heavy, deliberate footsteps echoing through the living room. The rhythmic thud of each step reverberated like a funeral dirge, sending tremors of dread coursing through her veins. Clutching her phone with shaking hands, she activated the camera in a desperate bid to capture evidence of the inexplicable intrusion. In the weak glow of the screen, a dark silhouette loomed at the threshold of her bedroom. A formless, haunting figure whose presence seemed less a solid intruder and more a distortion of the very fabric of darkness itself. A scream erupted from her lips, raw and unfiltered, as she frantically reached for the light switch. But when the room was flooded with harsh illumination, the spectral intruder had vanished, leaving behind only an oppressive emptiness and a lingering chill that clutched at her heart like a vice. The inexplicable nature of that night plunged Mariana into a vortex of terror and confusion, each unanswered mystery deepening the fissures of fear within her fragile soul. In the days that followed, the sinister events escalated with unnerving intensity. Whispers, soft, disembodied, and laden with sorrow, began to weave their way through the silence of her apartment. At first, the voices were barely audible, mere murmurs that could have been mistaken for the wind or the distant echoes of urban life. But gradually they grew more distinct, their cadence eerily mimicking her own, as if reciting secrets and utterances that had never escaped her lips. These spectral utterances invaded her thoughts, seeping into her dreams and blurring the line between waking terror and sleep-induced nightmare. Mariana's once safe haven transformed into a labyrinth of paranoia and dread. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains, became a potential harbinger of the supernatural. The apartment's familiar corners now loomed like shadowed sentinels, each hiding potential terrors waiting to emerge from the depths of darkness. In a desperate bid to reclaim the safety she had once known, she resolved to leave the apartment behind, determined to escape the insidious grip of the unseen forces that had invaded her life. Yet fate, cruel and unyielding, had one final harrowing revelation in store for her. On the eve of her departure, as she meticulously packed the few belongings that defined her existence, an overwhelming sense of impending doom pressed upon her. That night, sleep proved elusive, replaced instead by a nightmare so vivid and horrifying that it defied all reason. In the depths of her troubled slumber, Mariana awoke before dawn to a vision that would haunt her for eternity. Before her, in the fogged mirror of her bedroom, her own reflection grinned, a smile twisted with malevolence and despair, its eyes burning with a cold, accusatory fire. In a moment that stretched into an eternity of terror, words began to form on the misted glass, each letter etched with an icy precision. "You can't leave me." In the weeks that followed, Mariana's life became an unending cycle of sleepless nights and haunted days. Every creak of the floorboards was a reminder of that fateful evening, and every shadow that danced on the wall whispered threats of eternal captivity. Every sound, every flicker of movement, conspired to deliver another message from the void, an incessant reminder that escape was a cruel illusion, and that the nightmare would never truly end. 3 terrifying stories, 3 encounters that sear themselves into your memory, forever haunting your every step. But what about you? Have you ever sensed an unseen presence lurking in the corners of your room, felt the prickle of dread as eyes from the darkness seemed to watch your every move? Perhaps you've experienced that inexplicable moment when the world feels unnaturally still, and you know with bone-deep certainty that you are not alone. If so, then maybe you're not as isolated as you once believed. Brace yourself, for what comes next is not merely a tale, but an immersion into a nightmare so vivid, so relentless, it will challenge the very fabric of your sanity. The air around you seems to thicken with anticipation as you consider the possibility that something beyond understanding is silently observing you. Imagine for a moment being alone in your own home, a place that should offer comfort and security, yet feeling an oppressive weight as if an unseen force is scrutinizing your every movement. The silence, once a soothing companion, transforms into an overwhelming presence, punctuated by subtle sounds that escalate into a cacophony of dread. Every creak of the floor, every whisper of the wind outside, seems imbued with intent, each noise a deliberate note in a symphony of terror. As you sit in the dim light, your heart pounds with a rhythm that echoes the primal beat of fear. Shadows on the walls begin to distort and shift, assuming forms that hint at hidden horrors. The air grows colder, and you can almost taste the metallic tang of fear on your tongue. In these moments, even your own breathing becomes a thunderous reminder of your vulnerability, a stark contrast to the crushing silence that follows each exhale. Then, suddenly, a sound disrupts the fragile stillness, a soft, almost imperceptible scratch that emanates from the far side of the room. It is a sound so slight that it might be dismissed as a figment of your imagination, yet its effect is undeniable. your blood runs cold. You rise from your seat, drawn inexplicably towards the source of this disturbance, each step measured yet laden with dread. The wooden floorboards creak beneath your tentative footsteps, amplifying the sound into an eerie, dissonant echo that reverberates through the silence. With your heart racing and your senses on high alert, you move closer to the wall, where the scratching grows faintly louder, as if beckoning you to uncover its origin. Pressing your ear against the cold, textured surface, you hold your breath in anticipation. In that agonizing moment, as you strain to decipher the sound, the wall responds, subtly, almost imperceptibly, with a deep, resonant exhalation, as if something on the other side were breathing in unison with your own panic. Time seems to slow, each second stretching into an eternity of terror. Your mind, racing with both curiosity and dread, grapples with the impossible, a presence so real that it defies explanation, yet so elusive that it vanishes the moment you attempt to confront it. Panic grips you, seizing your limbs and freezing you in place, while an overwhelming instinct to flee battles against the spellbinding horror of the unknown. Then, as if drawn by a sinister force, your eyes wander to the closet door, a door you had always taken for granted, a mundane fixture in the backdrop of your daily life. Now, it stands slightly ajar, its surface swaying ever so gently as though disturbed by a ghostly breeze. The sight sends a shiver down your spine. It is an invitation, a silent challenge to confront what lies hidden behind the veneer of normalcy. Do you dare approach it? Do you have the courage to push it open and peer into the darkness beyond, where secrets and nightmares intertwine? The air is charged with an electrifying tension, each moment pregnant with the possibility of encountering something unspeakably malevolent. The closet door, with its gentle sway and half-hidden secrets, seems to hold a promise that what lurks within is not meant for mortal eyes. It is a threshold, a boundary between the safety of the known and the chaotic realm of terror that dwells in the shadows. Your mind reels with the thought that some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Some presences, once disturbed, will follow you into the light, haunting your every step, and shattering any semblance of peace you once knew. The horror of this realization is almost too much to bear, yet it is undeniable, a part of the universe where darkness is not just an absence of light, but a living, breathing entity that thrives on fear. As you stand there, paralyzed by both dread and a desperate need to understand, the atmosphere around you shifts. The gentle hum of the night gives way to a palpable silence, as if the world itself holds its breath in anticipation of what is to come. Every sense is heightened, every nerve ending on fire with the knowledge that something is about to change, a revelation that will forever alter your understanding of reality. In the final, heart-stopping seconds of that moment, as your eyes remain fixed on the ominous gap of the closet door, you sense that the true horror is not just what lies beyond the threshold, but the inescapable realization that you have always been under its watchful gaze. The presence that has haunted your every moment is not confined to the shadows. It is an eternal part of your existence, a dark companion that will not rest until it has claimed you entirely. The tension mounts, a crescendo of fear that promises to break through the fragile barrier of your sanity, leaving you forever marked by the touch of the unknown. In the stillness after the storm of terror, as the echoes of past horrors recede into a haunting background, a profound and chilling realization begins to dawn upon you, a truth so unsettling that it shatters every notion of safety. You stand in the quiet of your own space, the remnants of fear clinging to every corner, every shadow, as if the very air is charged with a malignant energy. But as you slowly glance around, your eyes, wide with both disbelief and dread, begin to discern an undeniable presence lingering in the periphery of your vision. It is as though the darkness itself has grown sentient, watching, waiting, and now, it seems, reaching out to claim you. Every object in your surroundings, every detail you once took for granted, has become a potential harbinger of unspeakable horror. The familiar has transformed into a stage for the macabre. The gentle glow of a lamp now casts grotesque, dancing shadows upon the walls, and even the steady tick of a clock resonates like a countdown to inevitable doom. In that moment, you come to a startling awareness. The terror that you once believed belonged solely to the stories of old is not a relic of the past. It is here, in the very fabric of your reality, entwined with your every breath. A sudden, inexplicable chill runs down your spine as you sense that the boundary between the known and the unknown has irrevocably dissolved. Soft, almost imperceptible sounds, the rustle of fabric, a distant, disembodied murmur, coalesce into a dissonant symphony of fear. The silence is punctured by the realization that while you have listened to these horrifying tales, something far more insidious has been listening to you in return. Each whispered word, every suspenseful pause in the narrative, has summoned forces that defy explanation, forces that now seem to have set their sights on you. As your heart pounds in a rhythm that mirrors the primal beat of terror, you begin to notice peculiar changes in your environment. The digital clock on the wall flickers erratically, its numbers distorting into patterns that resemble cryptic warnings. Mirrors, once reflections of your own visage, now reveal fleeting images of figures that vanish as soon as you dare to look. And in the quiet moments when you believe you are alone, you feel the weight of unseen eyes upon you, a presence that is as relentless as it is malevolent. Every horror story is, in its essence, a mirror reflecting our deepest fears. Tonight, however, the mirror has shattered. The spectral echoes of abandoned hospitals, the tormented souls from lonely apartments, and the sinister whispers that haunted your every moment converge into one bone-chilling truth. You are no longer a mere observer of these tales, but an unwilling participant in an unfolding nightmare. The fabric of your existence has been woven into the same dark tapestry that birthed these legends, and the lines between your reality and their horror have blurred beyond recognition. In a final, heart-stopping twist, the realization hits you like a physical blow. The very act of listening to these stories has opened a gateway, a portal through which the forces of the unknown have crossed into your world. They are not distant echoes or phantasms of a forgotten past. They are here, intermingling with your every thought, your every breath. The darkness that once resided only in the corners of the room now permeates every aspect of your life, a constant, oppressive reminder that true horror is never truly vanquished. It only waits, silently, for the opportune moment to reclaim its hold. The ultimate payoff of this relentless terror is not a single, cataclysmic event, but a gradual, inexorable transformation of your reality. You come to understand that the distinction between storyteller and listener has evaporated, leaving you irrevocably bound to the narrative of dread. The fear you once sought to conquer now courses through your veins like a poisonous elixir, and the familiar comforts of life are forever tainted by the knowledge that something dark, something insatiable, has taken up residence within you. Thank you for listening to these chilling tales. Remember, the stories you hear might just be echoes of your own hidden fears. And if you listen closely, you may find that in the depths of the night, something is listening to you as well. Until next time, dare to face the darkness, for it is always waiting, just a heartbeat away.